Hello, friends. I was just reminiscing about the 90s when we all had excellent hair. It was a simpler time. The first time a majority of the country supported interracial marriage, and yet a majority was still opposed to marriage for same-sex couples. These days, polling on marriage for same-sex couples has completely flipped since the 90s, faster than just about any other social change in the last century. So, what happened? To answer that, we'll need to spend a little more time in the 90s. There had been marriage lawsuits before, but they tended to be unsuccessful. Then in 1991, Ninia Baehr and Genora Dancel sued Hawaii. They had a pretty strong argument that the state constitution protected the freedom to marry. Public opinion didn't shift too much at first, in part because there still wasn't a lot of visibility for LGBTs, and also because there was a pretty fierce backlash.
This is a radical idea that 70% of the American people reject.
One state cannot be forced to accept a homosexual marriage.
It's not natural.
Not only did Congress pass the Defense of Marriage Act in 1996, but throughout the 90s, a bunch of other states passed their own versions. In Hawaii, voters amended the Constitution to block marriage. In California, Senator Pete Knight, who had both a gay brother and a gay son, got voters to pass a marriage ban in 2000.
We urge you to say no to discrimination by voting no on Knight.
One more time, please.
No on Knight.
And for a long time, that backlash closed off all avenues to marriage equality. But that started to change in 2004. A couple of really important things happened. The Massachusetts Supreme Court legalized marriage.
They gathered outside of Cambridge City Hall, more than 200 gay couples who wanted to be first to apply for licenses to legally marry in Massachusetts.
Unlike Hawaii, Massachusetts' constitution was a lot harder to change, so there was no immediate way to undo the court's pro-equality ruling. Around the same time, San Francisco started issuing marriage licenses on Valentine's Day and continued until the state Supreme Court shut them down a few weeks later. This was the first time that Americans saw gay couples actually getting married, and public support started immediately climbing. That was followed by another backlash, and voters in more states passed marriage bans.
Without this amendment, Minnesota could have gay marriage imposed on us in 2004.
This constitutional amendment would concretely define marriage, as we always have, as the union between one man and one woman.
Marriage means a man and a woman. Vote yes to keep it that way.
But even though public support for marriage was still under 50%, it was climbing. And there's one big reason for why that happened. Visibility. Suddenly, everyone was talking about how gay couples wanted to get married. And over the next couple of years, people got more and more accustomed to the idea, and opposition kept dropping away. Then we got to Prop 8.
What's going on here in California? Proposition 8 passed, and this is a proposition...
That was a major milestone. California had already passed a marriage ban once in 2000, but this time, it was different. Nationally, public support for marriage equality was only about 10 points higher than it was in 2000, but you can see that people felt a lot more strongly. Marriage equality wasn't hypothetical anymore. It was real people who had their rights revoked. So we saw huge protests, a renewed push to overturn marriage bans, and lots of new supporters coming on board. Over the next couple of years, we picked up marriage in a handful of states, and it was around 2011 that the streams crossed. That's because there was another major change in the way we talked about marriage. Previously, marriage equality ads were all about abstract rights and discrimination, and nobody cared.
8 would be a terrible mistake for California. It changes our Constitution, eliminates fundamental rights, and treats people differently under the law.
They want to eliminate rights, and they're using lies to persuade you.
Because regardless of how you feel about marriage, it's wrong to eliminate fundamental rights.
But it turns out that created a problem for voters. They heard that message and thought that LGBTs only married for political or financial reasons. Voters just didn't understand why queer couples wanted to get married and what was at stake for their families. Some voters didn't even realize that same-sex couples had families at all, and the ads made it even more confusing by erasing those couples. So that's when you see a shift in the ads for marriage equality and a campaign around why marriage matters. We started seeing actual gay people and their families in ads.
Our granddaughter Katie is gay. I would, in my lifetime, really like to be able to see Katie and Alex get married legally.
We love our daughter.
I would be very happy if my oldest daughter could get married at home.
Let people get married, man. Whatever pitfalls there are, let them struggle through it. Family's everything. We are family.
When the message shifted to love, commitment, and family, support climbed above 50%. And that's when voters in 4 states approved marriage equality for the first time.
Hey, Richard. The AV.
We'd reached a tipping point by 2013 when the Supreme Court overturned the Defense of Marriage Act and restored marriage equality in California. Support for marriage is now increasing by about 3 percentage points per year. At this rate, we'll be well over 60% by the next presidential election. Of course, there will always be those who remain opposed to civil rights no matter what. And in the past, when they suffered setbacks, we saw a backlash with DOMA in the 90s and constitutional bans in the 2000s. Sure enough, the same thing's happening again with Turn Away the Gays bills. Indiana was just one example. In the last few years, there have been dozens of proposed new laws to discriminate against LGBTs, part of a bigger backlash against all the success that we've seen with marriage equality. These laws can often be sneaky or disguised as something appealing, like religious freedom. You can click over here for a field guide to spotting those laws and also for a guide to stopping them. Thanks for watching. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts about how public opinion has changed on marriage over the decades. You can leave a comment on this video or tweet at me at Matt Baum. You can also check out my channel for more chats about LGBT issues, and you might also enjoy my other project, The Sewers of Paris. That's a podcast full of revealing stories about how entertainment has changed the lives of gay men. You can head over to sewersofparis.com to check it out and listen and subscribe. Now, if you'll excuse me, these episodes of Blossom aren't going to binge watch themselves.